analyzed the last 3 years of insights for my sales calls so you don't have to. And I got some big ideas, three that I'm gonna give you that's gonna show you specifically how you're gonna be able to get more clients consistently using your sales calls. I've been blessed enough to enroll over 588 coaching clients through our coaching program utilizing our systems. And it's because of some of the things that I've learned over the last 3 years of me building this coaching business. So here's one of the big things is for me, when I first started trying to figure out this journey of coaching, I realized that, people want problems to be solved. So I kind of started understanding that after my first few years of me doing this in 2015. But there's something that over the last few years that I picked up after I did this training, after I did this research, and I realized that there are a few things that people actually need to have happened to them psychologically for them to feel comfortable enough to be able to move forward. And once I started understanding that, I said, oh, okay, I understand why some of the things that I did worked. And now there's more things that I'm doing, even being in this since 2015, that I'm going to do more deliberately moving forward. You remember, as coaches, we're always learning and we're always taking our business and we're always taking our craft to the next level. So you're always going to be learning, growing, and getting better. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So one of the things I noticed, and this was, literally hundreds and hundreds of hours that I've had to like transcribe and really look through. And one of the biggest things that I first learned after going everything or really started to make super clear is what we call qualification. So I've paid for programs in the past when it comes to sales, and I realized that the better I've been able to qualify on my sales or strategy calls, the more likely I'm going to get the type of client that I want. But in addition to that, the more likely they are to take action at the end. And this is key because part of the questions that you ask is going to get somebody emotionally driven enough to actually do something about the problem. Because I remember times where I used to just ask these questions and I would just say, yeah, all right, yeah, what problem you want to solve? And yeah, hey, look, and I would just kind of jump into how I can help them. But it wasn't, I didn't really ask questions in a way that allowed the other person to answer them themselves. And this is a big key because after working with hundreds of coaches personally in our program and thousands externally, I realized most people don't really have an idea of why they're asking certain questions. And that used to be me. You ever been out and trying to help somebody and you just kind of rambling, but you're not following a framework of what you're trying to get the person to do, how you're trying to get them to feel throughout the process. You kind of just saying what you think you should say. So that was me. And after I decided to really start joining these coaching programs and learning sales, I said, oh, there is a reason for every single question that is asked. There's no randomness. So once I picked that up, then that's when the snowball effect really started to change. Now you'll get some people that'll say, no, just go out there and just start, talking to them and just go out and get comfortable. But it really doesn't take that much time to craft questions in a way that's going to get them to actually take action. Your goal is to get them to answer the question themselves. You should not ask a question that you don't already know the answer to. And you're doing it not just because of them knowing the answer or you knowing the answer, but it's because you want them to feel a certain type of way when asking these questions. Like I'll give you one that I started asking more recently is, well, how long have you been dealing with this problem? What happens if this doesn't get solved? Why do you feel like you need help with this? Or what's been preventing you in the past from getting help? You see, these are questions that once you start asking, they'll start saying why they doubted themselves. They start saying, well, here's why I need help with this. You're a coach, right? So this is to an advantage of you as well, them knowing and admitting that they do need help, right? So it doesn't blow up on you at the end, but them saying, oh, I was just kind of inquiring, just kind of looking for information, because they've already told you, but more importantly themselves, that they do need the help and they do have the challenges and they've been struggling with this for a long time. right? So when you ask the right qualification questions, that puts you in a position that allows you to help more people because they're going to feel more emotionally driven to take action. So that's one of the big things that I'm continuing to move forward, is like the better that I get at asking these questions, the better that I can get them excited and motivated to take action. That's literally one of the most important parts of the call, because if you get the questions right, you get the motivated enough to move forward. And so that's something that I'm going to continue to hone on as I went through these sales and reviewed these sales calls, is that I'm really getting better in asking questions, better questions, more emotionally driven questions that make that almost forces them to say, I got to do something about this. I can't wait and struggle for another 5 years. My family is counting on me. My future, the people that I'm looking to help is going to be hurt. Me, psychologically, I'm going to continue to have less confidence if I don't do this. The skills that I'm going to be losing out on by not doing this, the more money I'm going to waste, the more time I'm going to waste. This is why asking the right qualification questions are important. So that's the first big piece. Now here's another interesting part of this, right? You might be saying, well, what else, right? Like, what else could we really take away from this? Well, I'm gonna tell you this. Second thing that I noticed is that I had to figure out what we call your recommendations. That's the second piece of this, recommendations. As I was consistently going through it, I realized that, and I kind of knew this subconsciously, but it just triple confirmed for me that when you give recommendations, you're not coaching on the call. That is probably the biggest mistake that I see coaches do when they get on these sales and strategy calls, is that they're doing too much coaching because you want to feel smart. You want to feel like you have the answers and you have your cape on, and they're willing to work with you because you're so smart and you're an encyclopedia on your topic. That is not what gets people to feel comfortable working with you. It's not about you just spitting out a bunch of facts. It's not about you just trying to teach them and train them on everything to say. They say, wow, you are really smart. It's not about that. When you're giving recommendations, it's just about giving them the map. It's just about giving them the blueprint. And giving them the blueprint, so giving them what they need to do, is different than going into detail about how they need to go about doing it. I can tell you that you need to go run ads to get leads faster, but you still need to know how to set it up. You still need to know how to do the ad. You still need to know how to follow up with the leads. There's still questions that need to be answered, but I told you the strategy behind it, but you still need to know the tactics and the how to. So, and that's the best way to do it. So somebody understands the plan, but they still want to work with you in order to get the details of how to execute on a plan and the support that they need in order to execute on a plan. That is one of the biggest breakthroughs that I've had. And then even just reviewing the sales calls, I'm like, okay, yeah, just getting better at consistently helping and clearly helping somebody understand what the plan is. And then at that point, making them really understand that, okay, look, this is what life is going to be like when you don't do this. This is what life is going to look like when you do this, right? Future pacing. This and that, do that, and literally doing that with every step and saying why that step is important and why they haven't got results in the past because of that, and why they're going to get better results now that they're going to utilize the strategy moving forward in the future. So this is key. All right. Third thing that I realized is what we call presentation. Presentation. This is where you will present your offer. Another mistake that I made throughout the years was, going on, I would get on these calls, and I remember one time I got on the call and I'm like, okay, great. Look, this is what you get. And I went through the 25 things that they get as part of the program, every little thing, because I said, the more things I give them, the more value they're going to say this is, and then the more they're going to be willing to pay, and the more excited that they're going to be. And I would just say, you get this and you get this, every little thing. Oh, and I got this resource, and I got, this PDF you're going to get, and, I have this video in there you're going to help. And, and I was just going through all of these things, and I get to the end and I'm like, boom, almost like mic drop. And I realized that they were looking kind of, she was kind of shaking her head, and she said, okay, it sounds good. Wow, this is a lot. Let me think about it. Oh my God. right? Like, wow, yeah, wow, this is a lot I have to think about. And I realized that, I'm giving them what they call information overload. I overloaded the person with so much information that she literally, it was too much. It was like, whoa, like a deer in headlights. Let me just think about this because this is a lot. I gotta see if I have time to do it. I gotta see if I have energy to do it. I gotta make sure this is not over my head. And then now there's 1,000 things that's going through her mind that is literally preventing her from taking the first step to solve the problem. And this is another common issue that we face, is that when we're presenting either too much or too little, right? We're presenting too much where they get overwhelmed, or literally we don't really even know what we're presenting. So they don't even really get a clear understanding of what they get, right? So it's like confusion. Either way, you're causing confusion, and a confused mind never buys. You may have heard of that before. So that's really key. And you'll get some people that'll just say, hey, you know what, just kind of go with the flow, and whatever they say, just say that you can help them with it. And that's not a good way to approach it, right? You got to have some things that you're going to give them, but at the same time, you can't add too many things. I kind of like 3 to 5 deliverables within my offer. And then you got to be clear on the price, right? So you got to be very clear on and concise with what you're giving. So as I was like reading and kind of looking through these calls, I'm like, my goal is to consistently get better on each and every one of these areas, right? My goal is consistently get better on the qualification, and asking the questions so they get emotionally driven and take action. Is to get better at the recommendation. So I'm not over coaching or over teaching or over training, but they got the plan just enough to feel confident of what we're going to do, but they still need the help in order to move forward. And then the presentation, which is the offer, not giving them too much in the offer where they feel like they can't even do anything because it's just too much and it's too confusing. So those are some of the key insights. Now, a couple other things, right, that I've learned, and this is even with working with other coaches when it comes to this process, is that most coaches don't feel like they're good enough at selling. This is kind of some of the insights that I got from even me talking to some people, right, is being afraid of sales. Here's the thing. You don't have to be the best at sales. You just have to be clear and concise with the outcomes and what people are getting. All folks want to know when you work with them is can you put together, do you have a simple plan that you've thought about for at least 5 seconds? And when I pay you this money, I just want to know that I'm going to get closer to my goal than where I'm at currently right now. Literally, that's it. So you don't have to be the best at sales. You don't have to be a car salesman. You don't have to do none of that. I didn't go to school for sales. I got a bachelor's and a master's degree. My whole career outside of this was cybersecurity. So I worked for Fortune 500 companies, doing cyber, doing vulnerability assessments, doing, IT, working with these different companies out here, Philip Morris. I worked for GE. I worked for, Johnson & Johnson. I was working with all of these Fortune 500 companies. So this wasn't even a thought to me until about 2015 when I started realizing like, I like helping people, with coaching. I like, I'm a social person. I like to learn and I like to try things. And then, and so these are the things that allowed me to say, I want to jump into it. So I didn't naturally learn these things, but over time, I made the decision to get coaching. I made the decision to get the help that I needed because, I learned like in order to be a master at anything is going to at least take you 10,000 hours, right? We've learned that. So I said, okay, well, if that's the case, instead of me having to put in my own 10,000 hours, which typically is about 10 years, right? So instead of me being able to do that, then why don't I just use somebody else's 10,000 hours? I'll be willing to pay them a couple dollars. Let me just hack their 10,000 hours and then I can move further faster. And that's what happened when I took these. I bought a sales training course, and that was one of the first things. I took Jordan Belfort training course. I paid a few thousands and thousands of dollars just to learn sales specifically. And so it's pretty cool over the years, me learning it, applying it, and then going back and then reviewing and seeing the progress and the progression and the calls that I did well and then the calls that I didn't do well, what that all looks like in terms of being able to get the results and enroll the hundreds of clients we've been able to do. So that's the key piece. Now, you might also be telling yourself like, okay, I don't have the time to get better and do this, right? So here's the thing, right? You have the passion to do it. You have the passion to help people. You have the passion to coach and train and teach and live the laptop lifestyle and travel. And I was out in LA for I was for BET weekend, for BET week, and it was amazing. And all I had to do was just bring my laptop, and I was able to continue working and then meet celebrities and do all of these cool things, right? And here's the thing: it doesn't take the most time in the world to do this. It just takes planning. That's all it really does. So if you only have, let's say, 10 hours a week to dedicate towards building your coaching business, then you have the times that you put that in your calendar, and then that'll be the times that you actually will take calls in your business. So for example, when I was working my 9 to 5, and I was working a 9 to 5. I had fiance at the time, and I was doing, and I'm just living life. I'm in a fraternity. I got other things going on. Now, how I was able to go full time in this business was putting things on my calendar. So I would say, okay, you know what? I'm gonna wake up an hour early so I could work on the business. I had an hour lunch break. I remember me working at Johnson & Johnson. They would give us hour lunch breaks, and I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna take 50 minutes of that hour, and I'm gonna use that to meet with somebody. So guess what? That just opened up a strategy call, sales call for me. Right? Typically before, I would just go eat and just go relax, and I'll watch YouTube videos, and I would take my time eating, but when I said, okay, where can I find time? That's when I said, oh, you know what? I got like 45, 50 minutes right here. Boom, let me do that. And then cool, you know what? I got another hour once I get off work. So that basically gave me 2 calls that I can do per day. Now, if I could do 2 calls per day, and let's say I'm taking calls Monday through Friday, and out of those 10 calls that I'm taking throughout the week, if only 1 or 2 people signed up and I got a $2,000 program, boom, we in the game, baby. We in the game, right? So that's how you got to be thinking is, okay, let me at least put 5 to 10 hours a week aside, and you got to protect it like you protect the job you go to. You got to protect it like you protect the doctor's appointment you got scheduled. You got to protect it like something you do for your kids or family member. You really got to protect it, because when you do that, you're going to be more consistent. The more consistent you are with it, the more the results and the clients are going to start to build up. So that is what it's going to take. And that's really what I've learned, really after reviewing these sales calls and strategy calls over the last 3 years. All right. So go out, let's go implement it. Remember, this is what we've been able to come up with in terms of helping you remember how to do your coaching call, how to do your strategy call. So 1, qualification, ask the right questions. Number 2, recommendations. Make sure that you're not overtraining, but you're giving them the simple 3 to 5 step blueprint on what it takes to achieve the outcome that you're promising them when they pay you. And then presentation, that is presenting the offer. And I would try to keep it light. I would keep that to maybe 3 to 5 deliverables as well. What you're giving them in terms of, all right, we're going to do one-on-one coaching for this amount of time. You're going to get group. You're going to get a course. You're going to get this done for you service, whatever you decide to deliver. All right. So with that being said, hopefully you got a lot out of this video and all of the calls that I've been able to make. If you loved it, go ahead and give this a like. Go ahead and subscribe. Let me know your number 1 takeaway below. And remember, slow motion is better than no motion. Let's work.